comes to things that people may not know about, I don't know, like we were just talking about with, our friend JB and acting, how there's just rules of the road that you don't want to break when it comes to like your vocation or your activity.
Right.
Is there something like that stands out in the mountaineering world, whether it's from the guide service perspective or being the guide or the facilitator at anywhere along the line, whether you're at Kilimanjaro or Everest or Antarctica or Denali, anything that comes to mind as being something that's maybe
taboo,
yeah.
Well, I would say being a professional throughout the program, the expedition. And, we all have hard days. We all come to our wits' end sometimes. And just keeping a professional presence amongst the group, the climbers, the clients.
And I imagine that's got to be hard because you spend so much time in an isolated space that you're going to develop a friendship. Like if you're the trip that you were just in Ahmed Blam, I saw photos of you guys having to spend some time in the tents waiting for a storm to blow through. So that's time where you have the opportunity to kind of break that wall between professional guide and client.
Yeah. No, it's great to to spend time with people who share a passion and enthusiasm for being in the mountains and challenges, goal setting, pushing ourselves to climb higher and to get stronger. And usually that type of personality is open to growth, right? Because when we step out of our comfort zone to go on a mountaineering expedition, there's usually a lot of new things happening and a lot of challenges and a lot of unknowns, and we're meeting new people we're going to be climbing with for potentially weeks or months. We're going to deal with some challenging weather, some tough route conditions. We might fight through an illness. It could be like a stomach bug, or it could be altitude illness. So there's a lot of things that could potentially become adversity that we have to push through in order to get to our goal and to get back safely. And going through all of that adversity creates lots of growth opportunities. So that's one really cool part of going on these trips is going with other people that know there could be some challenges and some personal growth opportunities.
Do you run into people who maybe bit off more than they could chew that somehow made it through the
vetting process?
Yeah, the vetting process.
Yeah, we try to do a really good job of making sure everyone is appropriately qualified to go on the trip, whatever trip that is, whether it's Mount Rainier or Mount Vincent or Mount Everest, making sure they have the appropriate amount of experience and training. So for Everest, we require having climbed some other big peaks recently and having done well on those peaks to prove that you're capable of going further and higher and being safe and successful, and also being part of a team. And we also like to make sure that everyone's on a good training program. It's not enough just to have climbed some big peaks in the past. Everyone has to show that they have a well thought out training program leading up to the next climb that they're going on with us.
Back in the day, I think maybe right when you used to work with Rainier Mountaineering, and then there was another group out of Bend, I feel like I remember as well, and then
Alpine Ascents,
Alpine Ascents, and then it was time for Madison Mountaineering. And at some point along there, you had created a program called Train to Climb.
Yes.
Was that basically an opportunity to give your prospective clients a chance to have like guided preparation?
Yeah, what I wanted to do was help climbers who were doing a mountain climb for the first time, usually Mount Rainier, have the opportunity to do some advanced preparation and specific training for that climb to maximize their potential for success and also enjoyment, because if we're feeling fit and strong up there on the summit, usually we're having a good time. If we're crawling on our hands and knees to the summit,
a little less enticing.
Yeah, generally we're like, I'm never doing that again.
Yeah.
So I did create a company called Train to Climb, and I started working with the local athletic club on Bainbridge Island with Michael Rosenthal, the club owner. He actually climbed Rainier with me in 2005 at the end of the season with a couple other guys just for fun. And I think it was pretty tough for him. I remember him going, man, I didn't train at all, and this thing kicked my butt. And then he said, okay, let's do this. So we advertised a Train to Climb program at his athletic club on Bainbridge. And I came in and did a slideshow and talked about the program, how it would work. It would involve personal training for 6 months, like January through June, with his trainers on a program that was specific to each individual based on where their fitness was and what they needed to work on to get to be in good mountain shape. And then I would take the group on a climb of Mount Adams in July, which was preparation for a climb of Mount Rainier in August. And Mount Adams, being about 2,000 feet lower than Mount Rainier, but also very glaciated and snow-covered, was a great training climb because you still had to carry a heavy backpack in and got to use crampons and an ice axe and get some of the experience.
And it's still just a long ascent.
Yeah,
where you just gotta turn your brain off for a little bit and go.
Exactly. So that was a fun program, and then expanded to about 5 or 6 other clubs in the Seattle area, and was helping climbers for a number of years who wanted to do specific training before going on the climb.
So you talked about how you want to make sure that they have a really solid aerobic base, just lots of time spent long and low, get the heart, get the motor strong. And you want them to have good intrinsic muscular strength and endurance, intrinsic muscles being those ones around the feet, the ankles, the toes. Are there any other like specific body areas that a prospective climber would want to target to make sure that that they are doing everything they can to succeed on, whether it's a climb of their own or climb with you?
The core, definitely core work, because the core stabilizes everything, and carrying a backpack means we need a strong core to remain balanced, and I just can't stress how important the core is. Yeah.
So there's this another friend and fantastic physical therapist of mine. His name's Chris Johnson over in Seattle. He had introduced me to the concept of the prisoner's dilemma, but specific to exercise. So in the prisoner's dilemma is that you have, let's say, you're spending your time behind bars, but you have 30 minutes to go out in the yard, and you got to use those 30 minutes, okay, to maximize your opportunity to get some fresh air, feel some sunshine, but also get fit. And so he had posed the question, if you could choose 3 exercises that would be like, I don't want to say can't miss, but 3 ones that pretty much any climber, no matter how early they are in their career or later in their career or how unfit or how fit they are, that they could benefit from. Can you think of those 3?
Well, I would say walking, hiking, or jogging, some combination of that, just being outside and moving, whether it's a walk, a hike, or a jog. That would be 1. I would say number 2, probably just a plank, right? Just get down and plank and build that core strength from head to toe, or elbow to toe. And number 3, how about the wall sit? I don't know. I don't know if that's any good, but sure sounds tough.
Well, it does. I mean, anybody who's ever done the wall sit, you can feel your quads just on fire.
Oh, yeah.
It's like 8th grade basketball coming back to haunt us here.
Exactly.
3 exercises that, so those I think all are very much personalizable to the activity of mountain climbing, glacier travel, etc. And one of the things that I think would be worth considering would be recognizing that if you're moving with a pack, the pack's going to be shifting around on you as you're walking, or the ground itself underneath you may be a little uneven. So how could you take those 3 exercises the walking, hiking, jogging, the plank, and the wall sit, and create something that is dynamic to even become more specific to climbing.
Step ups, like box steps.
Yeah. That's one of my that's one of my prisoners 3.
Yes, yeah. Step
sure.
ups, lunges. Oh gosh, those are painful. And I guess just air squats.
Yeah. So involving gravity and inertia, and especially if you have your pack on, I mean that takes that challenge next level. So I think a really cool thing about that is that you just listed 3 of just like the classic things that you'd consider exercise, right? Walking, jogging, hiking, planking, and wall sitting, with variations of step ups and air squats, and then if you're wearing your pack, like something very simple has all of a sudden become way scalable to create a challenge that can challenge anybody, and you can just play with the little variables, right? How high is the step? How low is the step? Are you doing it on something squishy, or are you outside and maybe you're stepping on and off and on like rocks or gravel? When you're doing those lunges, are you doing it with the pack on the back, or are you maybe holding it in your hand? Like all these little variations that can make the exercise that much more or less, or just differently challenging in a different way.
So switching to injury, you have an opportunity to take people from the airport to the top of a mountain and back. What happens when somebody has a boo-boo? What happens when they get injured? And what have you encountered over time, whether it's yourself or a client or somebody who's not even in your party?
Well, injuries do happen. They say the best way to avoid getting injured is just to keep moving, to keep training, keep climbing, keep doing what we do, not to slow down too much, because then we have to start back up. So
it'd be hard to get that engine restarted sometimes if you let it sit for too long.
Yeah, better just to keep moving all the time. When an injury happens in the mountains, it depends what kind of injury it is and what mountain we're on, what our rescue abilities, evacuation abilities are. But say on Mount Everest, if somebody gets injured up high on the mountain, let's say they fall into a crevasse and twist an ankle or break an arm or something, as long as they're below about 23,000 feet and the weather's nice, a helicopter can fly up there and pick them up. Actually, on this recent trip to Nepal, one of my climbers got down from the summit to Camp 2 and was having trouble breathing. And we didn't know what was wrong with him. We couldn't figure it out. But he was having trouble breathing and he wasn't getting better. And the daylight was ending soon. And so we called his insurance company and they initiated a helicopter rescue for him from Camp 2, 22,000 feet. So they dropped a cable down out of the helicopter, clipped into his harness and whisked him off the mountain.
So he's just swinging underneath the helicopter all the way back to town?
Suspended in midair down to base camp, and then landed, and then he got in the helicopter with the pilot. So we're very fortunate in some cases where we have access to helicopters. In the old days, maybe other climbers could carry you down in some capacity if you're injured on a stretcher or something. Or you could ride a yak or a mule out from base camp. But sometimes there's not a lot of options. So we really try not to get injured, right? We do everything we can to avoid injury, such as falling down or getting hit by something, a rock or a piece of ice. So we do everything we can to mitigate risk, injury, and objective hazards, but sometimes we can't avoid it.
What are some things you've seen up there, injury-wise, and had to deal with, outside of like something physical that you've seen?
I've seen climbers break bones. So broken legs, broken arms. I've seen people get hit by a falling rock and have head injury. I've seen altitude illness where someone becomes incapacitated by the altitude. Other illnesses, dehydration.
With one of those broken bone incidents, how is that managed?
So fortunately, most of the guides all have good backcountry medical training, and normally we carry a medical kit that's got equipment to deal with minor trauma, broken bones. So we can splint a broken leg, whether it's a tib fib or a femur, or a broken arm, humerus, radius, ulna, and try to minimize additional injury and package the patient, make them as comfortable as possible, and evacuate them as soon as possible. But sometimes it's difficult. I just mentioned, we had a helicopter rescue off of this peak in Nepal, Amon Ablam, recently, a couple weeks ago, and that went super smooth. We've had rescues off of Everest that have gone super smooth with helicopters arriving within a matter of hours of someone being injured. And then there's cases where I was at K2 base camp a few years ago, and a climber was injured on Broad Peak, broke her leg, not one of our climbers, from another team, and had a compound fracture in her leg. And
open, basically bone comes through.
And the options there are, you could ride a mule out. Think how painful that would be, 100 miles on a mule with a compound fracture, bouncing along. Or you can get a helicopter if the helicopter could fly, and the weather was bad for a few days. And so she sat in base camp with a compound fracture without any access to modern medicine until the weather cleared and a helicopter could fly in and pick her up. So
that is challenging. Now that's sort of on the, that's on the more emergent type injuries. What about some of the day-to-day stuff? Because I'm sure when you guys are doing rotations between camps, or maybe out just doing some training before you go up high, you'll get people who maybe strain their back or pull something in their shoulder. What's a way that you'll sort of guide them, or maybe have a high altitude nurse or somebody else, if you have that available to you, to help manage those injuries?
Well, an overuse type injury or a strain or sprain generally just needs rest and not any more aggravation of the injury. So if someone is injured on one of our teams in the mountains, as long as they don't need medical care, we'll just have them rest until they feel like they've recovered enough to resume climbing, if possible.
We were talking earlier about shoulder strengthening as being, great for shoulders. I always, when I'm rehabbing and working on performance with some specific athletes, say to them that if you can bulletproof your shoulder, you give yourself a chance to, less of a chance to be injured, and if you are, to have a faster recovery. And so I'm thinking about being up in the mountains, chances are you have an opportunity to maybe misstep and reach out and fall on an outstretched hand or something. I would imagine there are probably, we're going back to the prisoner's dilemma exercise problem. What would you choose? I can definitely see where shoulders would be a good component. So your plank starts to get into that to keep the shoulder happy and healthy. And then when it comes to back strains, which if you're human, like you've had back pain at some point in your life. And the exercises that you were talking about air squats and step ups and maybe having some weight in your pack as you're doing those is a great chance to get those trunk and core muscles ready to do the kind of work that they need over time. So I think one of the things that could be helpful that maybe we can add to this to this chat is we'll get a few exercises together and then maybe just do some demonstrations of those exercises and include those so that way prospective climbers or current climbers have a chance to see sort of what Garrett Madison legendary climber in his own right does to stay fit and healthy.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. I'm looking forward to that. Something I can use for myself to stay fit between trips.
Well, and that's where that really speaks to as well, not just on the mountain, but when you're off the mountain, when it's important to know sort of what your network is of people in the medical industry, in the adventure industry, and people who know nutrition. So that way you can really craft and create like the best plan for each individual person.
Definitely.
Trainers in the former Train to Climb program, and even now people working on their own, they know what they need because they're being driven through that process so they can succeed. You are giving them whatever tools they need from a mountaineering and guidance perspective to succeed on that front. What are we doing to make sure that if they get injured, they know what to do? What are they doing to keep from getting injured? And the big one, how are they recovering? Which is a big one you touched on, you needed. What are they doing for nutrition? How much sleep are they getting? Are you taking the appropriate downtime? I feel like if you hit all those facets, you set yourself up for the greatest opportunity for success. Not to put words in your mouth, which I've done.
Definitely. Yeah. It's all about staying healthy.
Yeah. This has been Garrett Madison, longtime friend, basically family. Garrett, if you have, if there are people watching this who want to hear about expeditions that you've done in the past, if they want to maybe learn a little bit more about you or Madison Mountaineering, how can they best reach you?
Google MadisonMountaineering.com or Garrett Madison and see where it takes you.
Thanks, man. It was really great to get to chat officially on camera after, just kind of seeing you and chatting with you all these years. I really like this.
Yeah, awesome.
We'll do it again.
All right.
All right.